The tension in the congressional chamber that afternoon could have been cut with a knife. The room, filled with sharp minds and sharper tongues, was already on edges. Representative Jasmine Crockett leaned back in her chair, arms folded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Across the table, Senator John Kennedy, known for his old-school wit and Southern charm, was speaking slowly, deliberately, his words dripping with that peculiar mix of courtesy and challenge that often precedes a political storm. It started like any other exchange in Washington, another hearing, another clash of ideology. Kennedy was making his point about policy, trying to corner Crockett on an issue that had long divided the chamber. She laughed, not cruelly, but in disbelief, the kind of laugh that says you can't be serious. It echoed softly through the hall, and in that brief moment, the tone shifted. The senator paused, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. What came next no one expected, not even Crockett herself. "Congresswoman," Kennedy said, his voice steady but heavy with something deeper than politics, "you remind me of a man I once read about, your grandfather." The room went still. Crockett straightened in her chair, her expression changing instantly. She wasn't used to hearing her family brought up in this arena. "Few politicians are," Kennedy continued, his words now carrying a weight that was less about winning an argument and more about drawing a connection. "Your grandfather," he said, "worked the fields of East Texas, didn't he? A man who believed in dignity, in working hard even when the odds were impossible. I read about him once, a community leader who taught his neighbors not to give up when doors were slammed in their faces." The laughter had vanished. Crockett's eyes softened as the memories surfaced, stories her mother told her growing up. Her grandfather, a man who never made the headlines, who wore his hands out to feed his children, and who stood up for fairness when fairness wasn't fashionable. He lived through segregation, poverty, and humiliation, but he never let bitterness claim him. Kennedy wasn't mocking. He was reminding her, reminding everyone, that behind every political figure sits a human story, a lineage of struggle and pride. Crockett took a deep breath, visibly holding back emotion. "You're right, Senator," she said quietly. "My grandfather worked those fields. He didn't have much, but he taught me to fight, to stand my ground, to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. That's why I laugh sometimes, not because I don't take this seriously, but because I've seen too much pain to let this place break me." The audience shifted in their seats. Cameras zoomed in. What had started as a tense sparring match between two lawmakers had transformed into a rare moment of humanity in a room better known for division. Kennedy nodded, a faint smile crossing his lips. "Then maybe," he said, "we both learned from men who never stopped believing this country could be better." And for a fleeting moment, the sound of applause broke the still air, not from the gallery, not from party lines, but from hearts that recognized something profoundly real. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about remembering why they were all there in the first place. After the session ended, reporters flooded the hallway, eager to capture the headline. But behind the cameras, something more meaningful had happened. Later that night, Crockett spoke to her team, tears glimmering in her eyes. "He brought up my grandfather," she said softly. "I hadn't thought about him in a while. But maybe that's what I needed, a reminder that we're not just fighting for ourselves, but for the people who couldn't be here to speak." The clip went viral within hours. Millions watched the moment when laughter turned into reflection, and confrontation gave way to connection. Comment sections filled with people sharing their own family stories, grandfathers, mothers, uncles, and neighbors who had struggled, sacrificed, and persevered. It wasn't just a political debate anymore. It had become a national mirror. In the end, the moment between Jasmine Crockett and Senator Kennedy wasn't about policy or pride. It was about lineage. It was about the unspoken thread that ties generations together, and the belief that no matter how divided things seem, there's always a story that can bring people back to common ground. Crockett later said in an interview, "He reminded me that politics isn't just about power, it's about people. And if my grandfather were alive today, he'd probably tell me, baby, keep laughing when they test you, but never forget where you came from." And so, in a Congress too often filled with noise, one unexpected exchange became a quiet lesson in humility. legacy, and the power of remembering who we are. It was proof that even in the most unlikely of moments, say between laughter and confrontation, Grace can still find a way to speak. Because sometimes, it takes a reminder from the past to heal the divides of the present.